Students, sorry for not being in class today. I hope that you're able to watch this quick video and you're able to understand why certain answers were not accepted, and it might help you to better understand the text as well as to understand how to approach some of these common narrative comprehension questions. Okay, so looking at the very first question over here, most students were able to grasp that this tone that was used by the writer is actually sarcastic, okay, because you can see from the rest of the paragraph that this person is not actually feeling grateful, because there are some further context within paragraph 1. So within paragraph 1, you have to look at the rest of the text before you come to the conclusion about the tone that was used by the writer. So I would say that by and large, for everybody who submitted, I think a good 95% of you had gotten this right. I also want to highlight a common spelling mistake I have noted for students who have written the word grateful. This is not how you spell grateful, okay? So please make sure that you are aware of this spelling error. Okay, moving on. The next question asks about what is ironic about this person's situation. So looking at the context over here, we know irony basically means when something is opposite of what is expected. So irony here, if you're not very sure, you can write this down first. So if you see something that says, oh, what is unusual about this situation, what is ironic about this situation, usually you're asking for something that's opposite of what is expected. So for instance, a very common example you can use to help you to remember what irony is when, for example, a fire station burns down, because that's the last thing you would expect, right? You expect the fire station to be the one that renders help, be able to put out fires. So it's not the building that you expect to burn down in case of fire. Okay, so another example would be, for example, an earthquake shelter, right? You wouldn't expect that to crumble because that's supposed to provide people with shelter and protection. So that's the idea of irony. So in this case, why is this ironic? It's because firstly, you know that this is leap day, and usually we know that leap day is an extra day of the year. Usually we have 365 days, and when it's the year where we have the leap year, for example, we have 366 days. So this is supposed to be an extra day, extra bonus. So instead of feeling grateful about it, she's unable to do so. Why? You read the information in blue. So information in blue here tells you that she's about to jump out of the plane for the first time in the thick of war, and in this situation, it's not something to be grateful for, right? It's not something that you that creates this sense of peace, this sense of contentment, this sense of happiness. So if I were to put this together, instead of this day symbolizing an extra chance she has at life, this extra day for her to, experience the beauty of life, she is literally putting her life in danger. She doesn't know what's the outcome of the war. So there's this sense of irony over there. Okay, so this question is slightly difficult for students to phrase and to explain very clearly. Let me show you why. There are some answers here that are lacking in precision. So some of you basically just stated what exactly is her situation on that day. You did not explain what is ironic about it yet. Okay, so some of the answers are just partial. This is halfway. You're not really explaining anything. Okay, and then the next one here, you are not explaining fully, you are just quoting. Okay, so for this question, many people are just quoting without explaining. Or there's some students who misinterpreted, okay, that she's thankful for the extra day. She's not really thankful, she's actually being sarcastic about it. So is she thankful about it? I don't think so. Alright, so there's some inaccuracies in how you had approached this question. Okay, looking at the next question here, question 6, the writer claims that she looks like a clown show. So explain how. This is key. Many students did not explain how, you merely quoted the evidence. Alright, so this question requires you to explain how this claim is supported with reference to 2 pieces of evidence from paragraph 1. So you have no issues picking out the pieces of evidence. Okay, sorry, I should have changed this to yellow as well. So this is evidence 1, this is evidence 2. Okay, so there are 2 pieces of evidence, but the problem is many students are not explaining clearly how it shows, gives you this impression that this person is like a clown. Okay, so I've said this many times before. Whenever you see questions asking you to explain, you have to think of words that are associated to that thing you are asked to explain. So for example, if I'm asked to explain how this person looks like a clown, or this person has clown-like behavior, I think of a clown, okay, I try to think of words associated with it. So for example, I can think about this in terms of the person's appearances. I can think of this in terms of the person's behavior or the clothing. So many words come to mind, okay? The clown is always very colorful, very mismatched in the colors, very flashy, very exaggerated clothing. For example, the huge bow you see on this person. Very baggy clothing, very comical because they're very huge shoes, for example, or their color or their hair is dyed in multiple colors. Alright, they often behave in a very goofy, very foolish way. They may be very clumsy on purpose, bumbling around, okay, very absurd in their actions, very awkward, very eccentric because their behavior is very unusual, okay, very ridiculously behaved. For example, their clothing can be very oversized, like what you see on the shoes and on the person's bow tie. Or this person has a very awkward, or sorry, a very exaggerated smile, right, that you can see on the face, or the red nose, very flashy attire. So this is what you think of a clown, right? So linking back to this, you can see there are some clues already peeking out from the text itself. There's some idea of it being mismatched. Okay, some idea of it being mismatched. Okay, there's some idea of her being very clumsy, right? So there's this idea over here that something makes her feel very awkward about how she is dressed, how she looks. Okay, so when you're writing your answer, please think of this. Use words from here to help you to explain. Alright, so if you just quote the two pieces of evidence, you did not clearly show how it is related to a clown, then your answer is not applicable. Okay, you have to show this. So for instance, you can see this here: comical, awkward, foolish. Alright, so please learn the technique to ensure that your answer addresses the question. Okay, next question. Here, from paragraph 2, it reveals that there is reason to worry, and look at the question very carefully. The atmosphere and the mood must be in the plane. Okay, and how these things in the plane had caused people to feel a sense of worry. So analyze the question carefully, because some students are still making the very basic mistakes of using the same words again. Right, you're not supposed to use the word worry. You are to brainstorm of words that are associated with worry and use that in your answer to explain the atmosphere or mood, not just the mood of the plane or on the ground or whatever. It is in the plane. Okay, so you have to read through the text very carefully to make sure that you don't miss out any of these key things, because many times students get the general idea. The reason why they're not doing well is because their answers lack precision. So many of you, the likelihood is that your answers lack precision. Okay, so I'll leave this series of words here to show that they are associated with worrying. I'm going to show you pieces of evidence. Okay, so first part of paragraph 2, some students mentioned that the fact that there are only 4 people on the flight causes worry. Alright, so if I only have 4 people on a project group, I need not necessarily feel worried, right? Unless I know that, or I assume that people are incompetent even though there are 4 of us. Okay, so 4 people did not necessarily mean that they are incapable of doing the task well. So let's look at the next part. Here it says motley crew. Motley crew here describes a diverse group of people who do not seem to belong together. It's a little bit strange for them to be assembled together. They don't seem to have synergy. They don't seem to have any prior working experience together. They don't seem to be able to have teamwork. So the idea of a motley crew here, if for example, I'm in the hospital and people who, because of an emergency situation, and the people who come and help me is a motley crew of people, they don't seem to be very organized, they don't seem to know what each other is doing, then that's a source of worry. But if I'm being taken care of by for example, doctors, nurses, or occupational therapists, or I have a medical social worker, then I know that there's a function to each of them being there, then I may feel a bit more assured that my varied needs are being taken care of. Okay, so the idea of the motley crew over here, the fact that they are diverse, you have to unpack it a little bit more to show why this is a little bit strange for them to be seen together. Link it to the idea of worrying. Okay, so you can't just state that without explaining. You have to explain. I'll show you how you do that later. Let me go through all the different pieces of evidence first. Now the next one here shows a sense of trepidation as the aperture and the floor creaks violently to a close. So in case you're not sure of certain meaning of certain words, please write it down. Don't just assume you remember this. Write it down so that when you are revising this in the future, you are able to take note of the clues and the things that you missed out, the mistakes, or some of these reminders, okay? So trepidation and aperture being shown here. The idea that it creaks violently to a close and the fact that this person is already feeling a sense of trepidation shows that it is worrying. This is definitely an easy piece of evidence. But the problem is many students only quote partially. Okay, you're supposed to quote both together because it's in relation to each other. Okay, next one. There's a grinding of aching gears and the clank of the brittle metal. So the word choices here used also creates this lack of confidence in the person in the plane, right, who is being locked in the plane. There's this sense of dread, there's this sense of fear, there's this sense of unease and doubt and uncertainty. Will I make it through this trip or not? Because it doesn't give me confidence. Next, this here is where many students had misquoted this, because this here delayed the mission by an entire day. They are actually not on the plane. Okay, they have extra time to be on the ground, and for a second night in a row they were actually celebrating the fact that maybe not celebrating, they are actually on the ground. They are able to, you know, prepare. They are not actually in the plane. This question requires you to address this in the plane. So over here there's a sense of you know, again, this person is being very humorous to try to relieve the sense of tension she is feeling, to make herself feel a little bit less worried about the situation by using humor. Okay, very self-deprecating humor. So there are some words used here: raucously, looming, and death. So this might have given you the impression that that is applicable for this question. Okay, but this here, the fact that they're not in the plane, makes it a little bit less imprecise to quote this. I think this is the last one. Okay, the fact that they use the word cough to life. Cough to life here with an angry bellow. Okay, so if the engine is coughing to life, it doesn't sound like it's working very well. It's probably poorly maintained, or it is a very old vehicle. So there's this sense of unease as well. Makes you feel some sense of concern. Is this plane going to bring us there and bring us there safely? Okay, let us put all these ideas together. You can see that before you start writing, you have to annotate some of these ideas down, so it's easier for you to piece together your answer. You don't just write straight away and work out the mental sums or whatever in your brain. Write down, it makes it a lot easier. Okay, so don't be stubborn about it, just write it down. Alright, so this here are some pieces of evidence you can use. So you can see what I've done here is, if I am showing sense of unease, showing sense of worry, I write it in red. The explanations are in blue. Okay, take your time to read this. The evidence is in yellow. Right, so your answer should come in these three parts. Same for this. Red to show the sense of worry. Evidence in yellow here. Explanation in blue. Alright, so please ensure these three components when you are answering the question. Look out for what the question requires. Okay, next part. Quote a phrase that shows that comfort is hard to come by. I think this is quite straightforward. Elusive means that it's difficult to find. Okay, so elusive means that it's something that's very difficult to come by. And you are supposed to be precise with the phrase that you are quoting. Okay, so this itself is sufficient to indicate that comfort is difficult to come by. Okay, next question. Suggest how this person is feeling in the moment. It's an inference question. So using these pieces of evidence, we can break this down, right? So I've given you some breakdown in the sample over here. The answer, after you have broken all these different clues down, is to show you that the author is feeling a lot of fear, feeling anxious, feeling intensely nervous about something. So if you have written just nervous, it wouldn't be sufficient because it doesn't show the intensity. Right? Now question 10. Question 10. How do you know that this person is a seasoned jumper? I think most, or if not all of you have gotten this right. In case you're not sure what a hatch is, this is a hatch. So this person is a very calm, seasoned jumper because this person has done it so many times before. This doesn't faze him. This doesn't cause any sense of fear or dread or existential crisis, right? This person is very, very ready to jump, as you can see from the person's expression. So this is the answer. Okay, next question is about quiet panic. So this word unusual requires you again to address what is expected versus what is in reality. So the term panic over here usually suggests that, you know, there's very loud, frantic, uncontrolled behavior, people are in a frenzy, whereas for the word quiet here suggests there's this sense of calm, there's this sense of control. So you have to give them a clear contrast and explain the contrast. Alright, it's not enough to just say that the words are contradictory. Duh, I know they are contradictory, that's why they are unusual. Okay, so don't say that they are contradictory and don't just use the fact that one is not the other. This is a very poor way of explaining. Okay, so this is not the right way to show why it's unusual. So make sure that you are able to break down this phrase clearly whenever you see the question asking for an unusual asking you why something is unusual. Break it down very clearly, explain it in parts, right? Don't assume that I'm supposed to, you know, fill in the gaps for you or to make inference based on what you've written. Your answer itself should be self-contained, should be explanatory on its own. I don't have to make guesses. Okay, paragraph 11 B, sorry. So for 11B over here, why is this effective? So I know that if I am silently panicking, okay, on the surface I look calm and ready, okay, I look calm, I look composed, but inside I'm absolutely terrified. So why is this effective? Because it's effective to show that while she's in a dangerous situation, she's still calm and she's still composed. Alright, so this is effective to show that she tries to suppress the fear that she's actually experiencing. Okay, next one. This here was not very well done because there are some of you are still not understanding how to approach such questions. Number one, they ask you why this person says this. So that means the answer is not here. Okay, this is not the answer. Because they're asking why, right? They're not asking you to paraphrase this particular quotation. So if they're asking you why, it means the answer must be somewhere else within the text. And you can see that it is here. Why is it not normal to throw yourself off a piece of machinery? Why is it why is it weird or strange to do that? Okay, if there's something that's moving at high speed, you don't jump off a plane, you don't jump off a car unless something warrants it, right? So the reason why it is weird is because it goes against mankind's fundamental compulsion for survival, right? You know that if you jump off a moving vehicle, the likelihood of injury is very high, right? So the why is in red over here, and you're supposed to answer this in your own words. Okay, so make sure that you paraphrase things within this sentence, which is the answer to this question, right? And when you're doing so, okay, you are to paraphrase the piece of evidence in your own words. So for instance, it goes against, contradicts, mankind's humanity or humans' fundamental basic compulsion instinct for survival, stay alive. Right, so this is how you approach such a question. Okay, so be very careful, don't make careless mistakes, which I see many of you making. Okay, last one over here. This here, I would say there are some students who are able to get 3 or 4, but there are also a lot of students who are only getting 1. Okay, so look through this again and see if you understand how I arrived at the answer. So number 1, the first question is asking you about the writer's experience from when she boards the plane and to the time she jumps off. So the very first one, you see this person is embarking the plane, okay, going on board the plane. Cynicism over here means that there's some doubt and you don't trust the vehicle, okay, causing you some sense of worry. You are not very sure whether or not this vehicle will survive the trip. Okay, so this is the answer. Next one, this is what you do. Okay, once you know that you are not choosing that question, you can strike it off. Okay, and you are to pick out pieces of evidence to help you to match the answer. Now for this here, this person is preparing herself mentally. She's psychologically getting herself ready for the fact that she's jumping off a plane. She knows that she has what she needs. She knows that there's no choice but to carry all these items on her. So there are some students who think that it is this answer, facing doubt with humor. This is not accepted because while there is some humor over here, where she's trying to make fun, poke poke fun at how she looks, saying that she looks a bit deranged, that she looks a bit crazy over here, is to lighten this tension that she's feeling. She's not actually in doubt by the time she's in paragraph 3. She's doubtful about the plane, but she's not really doubtful about her abilities, so to say. So she has accepted the fact that she's going. There's no doubt about her choice. So this is the better answer. Okay, question 3, part 3. This here, how do you know that this person is refusing to buckle under pressure? There is definitely pressure. There is definitely a lot of stress that is experienced here. Okay, but when someone offers her a way out, listen, if you don't want to do this, we can take you back. You don't have to go through this if you don't want to, that's what they're trying to tell her. But the fact that she says, and go through all this nonsense again, just let me get this over and done with, don't torture me twice. That's the idea. Okay, so this is the answer. And the last answer, confronting hesitation with bravado. Okay, so this part is where you see the hesitation. Alright, and this person tells her this and that, one person didn't say a word towards the entire flight home. Okay, so she is trying to confront her fear. Right, there's no time left for hesitation. She took a long breath, and this is her being brave. So this is the answer. Okay, I want to show you an example I've seen from your classmate, and again I want to emphasize the importance of annotating, right? So you can see this student here has used what I have taught you, which is, for example, using, is it a negative connotation? Are there some positive connotations here and there? Okay, what are some words here, some clues that she or he could use to help them to actually analyze the text better and interpret the question better. So when you annotate it, again, like I told you before, you're removing the cognitive load. You are helping your working memory work a little bit faster because you can see the information on the text. You can make links a lot more quickly. So don't be stubborn about it. Just write things down. You have ample time to do so in the 1 hour and 50 minutes in the paper. The last thing you want to do is to reserve all this time and just sleep, and then after that you wake up, you have your paper back, you realize there are a lot of careless mistakes. So let's practice the exam skills and the exam techniques and the mindset that you want to prepare you for your SEC that will be in about a year's time. Okay, so I hope this has helped you, and I hope that you are able to play the video again and again and to understand what is good and what is not so good about your work. Alright, thank you.